We're back and better than ever. It's Novaria with Shatter Our Souls, and today we are tackling part 2 of dealing with our rival, Webster. Now, I admit last time I got involved in this, I did consistently say that it was JV. I am wrong, JV is the next one. But all things said and done, no harm done, no harm, no foul. So today we're going to tackle actually more than I normally do in a single sitting. Um, we're going to be dealing with the um, toll booth time trials today, as well as the speed traps, which are relatively similar in style and whatnot, with a little bit of extra flair as they approach the same problem with vastly different results. So, starting this off, the toll booth time trial. There are a series of toll booths throughout all of Rockport that are robbing the city in and of itself blind. Like, it's absolutely unreal. You can't go anywhere in Rockport without running into these things. Therefore, to try to mitigate their usefulness, I'm going to fly around this track as fast as possible just to show that the toll booths mean absolutely nothing. Part of the reason behind this, and I believe the part that is noted for the racers, is that the toll booths themselves take pictures of the racers as they pass them, or, as they destroy the toll booths. This allows for the racers of Rockport City to be able to compare and contrast one another's times on a given track far better or far easier than the average run would look like. And I realized this because, well, I, for a long time, have been curious and concerned as to why it was just a single man race. How would they not have a internal means of being able to tell that? And the truth of the matter is that there is an internal means, there's just not one that people generally paid attention to. So that's cool, I guess. The speed traps, on the other hand, are a series of photo radars set up around a small area that compare and contrast each individual person's top speed at several locations throughout a race. This allows for the hierarchy of the racing association of this particular city, Rockport, to be able to say this person was faster than this person at this point in time, and so on and so forth, to come up with their scoring. And I'll be honest, it's a very gamey set of mechanics, but be that as it may, it is as it is. What I will say is that it's nice to hop back behind the wheel of the silver Lexus. I suppose I haven't actually introduced the problem yet. Hi. So for this series, I have been attempting to beat the entirety of Need for Speed Most Wanted while only using one of the 4 starter cars, that being the Lexus IS300. And I'll be honest, it is a lot stronger vehicle than I gave it credit for, although there are some sections that it struggles with. It's a bus stop. Um, so noting what it struggles with. Um, it struggles primarily with top speed. Now, there are some vehicles that I'm challenging at this point in time that have a top speed edging out about 206 miles per hour. For those with kilometers in mind, that's about 250 to 300k, roughly speaking. So it is considerably faster than your standard run-of-the-mill vehicular. Running into that, or leaning into that problem, that means that these cars are absolute behemoths. And the Lexus, for all of its qualities, lacks top speed, having a top speed of 186 at the moment. Now, 186 what does that end up meaning? Well, it means that when it comes to actually racing and doing what I need to do, it is not likely to be able to edge out the opponent in raw power. That's never what this vehicle has been capable of. It's never been its specialization. Instead, it focuses more so in the other end of the spectrum. It focuses in on handling, it focuses in on acceleration. If we take those two into account, that means that it can take turns sharper than most of my opponents, and can get out of them faster than most of my opponents. It's a bit of a risk versus reward system, which I have no issue with. Rockport City, as a general statement, the straights are fairly decent, fairly decently long, but the traffic means that I can always keep ahead of my opponents in a turning mentality or in a handling mentality better than my opponents would. That's the long and the short of it, at least. Now, at the moment, we've got about, I want to say, 4 more upgrades to put into this beast. So I believe it's going to hit a top speed of about 195-ish at the absolute max, which isn't terrible. But it is a guesstimation based on my expectations of it not having the ultimate turbo and the ultimate engine as of yet. Other thing of note is that Rockport City, as a general statement, has some of, if not the most determined police and one of the most robust racing scenes within fiction. If you look at some of video games and really historic franchises that involve racing, such as Need for Speed, Forza, and the Fast and Furious franchise, which each of them do have a organized racing system, to be sure. What you'll notice in each game is that the racing system is based primarily on respect. In Fast and Furious franchise, where anytime that they show up in a given location, it's always, yeah, we're the best racers in town, we're gonna prove it. They take down the best guy in the room. Not that they're actually going to be rude to the guy. They're going to say, yeah, you're good, I can tell that. And they'll show off their skills, get a nice car or two out of the deal. That's how Fast and Furious works. In Need for Speed Underground, you start by learning about certain individuals like Eddie, and how he is one of the best racers in the area, but he never really has the ability to back it up the way he should. And so, you end up in this wonderfully weird circumstance where your opponent is actually weaker than the final boss, because Eddie had the respect. Now, turning that over a little bit and looking at it from a slightly different angle, you have Need for Speed Most Wanted, and wherein it is very organized. Now, some could say that it's just a luck of the draw, but the fact of the matter is that within this organized system of, shall we say, organized crime, every individual has to reach certain milestones to be able to race with certain opponents. So, you have to have a car to be able to beat, or to be able to race against Sonny, but you also have to beat some of the racers that Sonny deems respectable enough to be able to challenge him. If you beat his racers, he'll come after you, and so on and so forth, all the way up the blacklist. You don't just start with the top. You start with their underlings. That's why in the introduction of the game, you're looking to face Razor, who's blacklist number 15, and yet Razor's underlings are Ronnie and Bull, blacklist number 2 and 3 respectively in the later portions of the game. So what I'm getting at is that Rockport, for all it has that is good and consistent within it, also has a lot of rules and regulations that are placed upon the racers by the racers. Not just them, but also the police, having to be able to get away and cause X amount of havoc within the city to be able to challenge the next blacklist racer. These are the racers, in Rockport at least, that are the most notorious in Rockport in and of itself. But if you turn and flip the coin to its sequel, you'll notice that in Need for Speed Carbon, made in 2006, the game itself has a very similar system, but a very different system. Where it is similar is in the organization style. Every area is run by a crew. Your crew determines or your likelihood of success. And so you have Angie's 21st Street, Wolf's TFK, and Kenji's Bushido, as well as the Stacked Deck, all running and vying for supremacy within the city of Carbon Canyon, or within Carbon Canyon. I believe it's Palmont? Either way. The point I'm getting at is that this is a very robust system in these two games, which are primarily territory based in one game and reputation based in the other. Now, to have the territory, you need a reputation, and to gain the reputation, you need to win races, and so on and so forth. It ends up evening out over time to being relatively similar things, and yet the way they go about it is very different. That's my 2 cents of the day. Wow, I am driving awfully. Do not talk on the phone while driving. That's not a good idea. And I do apologize about the yappening today. I enjoy this, and I'm in a good headspace today. Ooh, wait a minute. Is that another Lexus? Is the light blue car another Lexus? Come on. Show up again. I want to see you. Woohoo! Okay. So, that is definitely another Lexus. So if I don't win, you need to on my behalf, okay? Okay, thank you. The thing about this game, as a whole, as a general rule, is that the game is technically beatable with any vehicle, but how you go about doing it and the skills that you need to be able to make it happen are vastly different. A car like the Lexus that I mentioned prior, having more of a handling focus comparatively to a top speed focus, is going to be vastly different than something like Webster's Corvette, which has a more balanced approach, and is going to be vastly different even still than the BMW M3 GTR that Razor runs, and so on and so forth. Every vehicle has a reason to be used, even if it's somewhat contentious on how much it needs or how difficult it is to run it. The reason I'm bringing it up in this particular fashion actually has to do with, well, short version is, if I were to do this again, I would start digging into other vehicles. Need for Speed Most Wanted has a lot going for it. And while I could definitely sit down and get all of my statistics sorted out in a single sitting, as long as I went through all my old footage, technically, I could. And it would be interesting to compare one vehicle to the next based on how well it handled the game at each stage of the game. But I don't think that's the most feasible thing out there. I've seen players decide, oh yeah, I'm going to race every single course in a given game X number of times to get a perfect determination of how hard each track is in such and such. Ooh, that was a nice one. I disagree with that mentality. Partially because, while yes, there is something to be said about consistency and deciding, oh yeah, I'm going to race every Mario Kart track with a standard kart and see how it goes. There's also the aspect that it's not intended to be viewed from the same angle. Every track is designed with different things in mind. Therefore, looking at it from that angle is so much more difficult than what would initially meet the eye. Um, an example of this is I'm going to look at Most Wanted here. There are 32 cars, each with vastly different capabilities. And while there are some that fit the bill as best in this section, best in that section, such as um, the Porsche Carrera GT, the Mercedes Benz, I forget what it is. Yeah, I'll remember later. And the Lotus Elise being the top three vehicles of three separate categories. They each bring something very different to the table, and being able to do that would mean that each car would function better in one race compared to another. And so what we end up with is this very in-between look if we were to go that route. The issue is that to be able to do that and get a consistent look at it, I would be looking at bare minimum 10 runs of each track with each car. There's somewhere in the ballpark of 60 to 80 tracks in this game. Multiply that by 32 and again by 10, and I would be 60 by the time I'm done. Which is kind of terrifying when I think about it, but you know, that's the long and the short of it. If I were to focus exclusively on this game, it could happen. I'm not interested in focusing exclusively on a singular game for any extended length of time. Anyway, we are now in on the speed traps. This is the second of the three under Webster's command. Webster has kind of one of the more unique batches of races as far as it goes, having only 2 circuit races, 2 sprints, 3 speed traps, and I believe it is 3 toll booths, for a grand total of somewhere in the ballpark of 10 races. You need to beat 7 of them. And so being able to beat 7 races in X amount of time is pretty reasonable in my opinion, as far as that goes. Okay, the big issue that we're going to run into, especially with Future, is that it gets harder over time to continue this. And while at the time of beating Webster, we're looking at probably about 66% of the game is done, that last 30% is by far significantly harder than the prior 60%. Yeah, he deserved that. So this is going to be the final race of the day, because I'll be honest, it's a lot all at once. But tune in next time, because we are going to be hitting the lap knockouts, circuits, and the traditional sprint races, as well as Webster's races in and of itself in one go. I'd like to see this challenge done before Christmas, and well, it's the middle of September now, so if I do 3 a week, I've got 3 a month, I've got effectively 3 to 4 months left. And that's gonna be my general attitude at this point. I can get this done by Christmas, I think. I hope. I'd be a little bit concerned if I can't. Yeah, oh well. Anywho, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you want to see anything special or different done with this series? Do you want to see a new series? Drop a like, leave a comment down below, and we'll see what we can do about it. Yeah, stutters. The goal being to not only do what I want to do, but to show how far we can push the bounds of gaming by making things a tad bit more difficult or different over time. Oh, wow. You know, for all of its flaws, I love this car so much more after doing a challenge run with it. It seems so ridiculous, but I've always been a hater of the Lexus among the basic four cars that you get. And I'll be honest, the Fiat Punto was the second least favorite, but after having played this for, well, what is effectively hours at this point, I've really come to respect what this car is actually capable of and would love to continue using it into the future. Eh, nickels and dimes, right? And we're almost done the race. At this point, I don't see them catching up. So, if you like what you see, drop a like, leave a comment, drop subscribe, be sure to hit the noti bell, and we will catch you next time. Until then, I hope you all have a good one. Oh, it's a golf club. It's the Golf Club Golf Club. The golf club for golf clubs.